All right. So I want to talk about the private domain because I realize for there is a whole much larger narrative behind the entire origin of the private domain. That's super relevant, okay? I, just like that, man, you're gonna see this, okay? So the private domain is associated with the sacredness of the household. So the family. Now, why is this relevant and connected to the scriptures? Is because, again, the Bible is about the, you could say, societal evolutionary development of complex social order within the species of mankind, going from tribal people, semi-nomadic shepherds and things like that, and the 12 tribes of Israel, and then moving up to being civilized and having solid communities and all of that. Okay, so now the private domain and the household. Okay, I want to explain something about the culture of semi-nomadic people and the history and the stories and the legends that exist in Canada and most likely North America. Okay, I just know the ones I've been told. Okay, a lot of the stories from the really old stories is that indigenous people were hunted by cannibals. Okay, and so then, okay, how do we deal with this and how do we break free? Say there is this complete collapse, back, we don't know how many, we do not know the cycle, but the Bible is hinting at it strongly. So what happened is it's all orientated around the family. Okay, Indigenous people, First Nations people will tell you they did not have government structures. They implemented a system where we would take care of our family. But then what happened is it was not just our immediate family, like our mate and our children. It would be all our siblings, all the older people, like our grandparents and all their siblings. We're all our grandparents. And our parents, well, all their siblings, men and women, they were all our parents. And then all the siblings of all those people, all those cousins, they were all our brothers and sisters. So emotionally, we found a way to extend the ability for us to care about other people, okay, and include them in our activities and include them in sharing with them and cooperating with them, okay? But so sometimes, the tribes they figure normally never smaller than 150, but 300-400, maybe 500, and after that it starts getting hard to provide for that many people in that less concentrated way of living, okay? So what would happen is this, say you have a group of 300 people. Everyone knows everyone. But you're traveling through a land that the stories have it, there's cannibals that live there. Okay? Okay. So here's a story. There was a river, and a tribe was camping nearby, and one of the men had gone to the river, and there was a warrior he recognized on the other side of the river, but he was not of his people. Okay? So now that warrior knew to not just approach him. Okay? No, they did not do that. Especially in the olden days when you didn't know someone. Because the security of trust was created through the fellowship. We were able to trust each other that we weren't a cannibal, okay? Because we were all surviving together and none of us were cannibals. And that's something we agreed on. We hunted, we shared our meat. Okay, it was a completely different approach that was based on love and affection and common well-being. Okay, this is the deep spiritual principles of the First Nations people that completely aligns with the message of the Bible. This is important, very important. Okay, so back to the story. So the one warrior who was, concerned for his people, okay, was watching, and the man on the other side made an arrow and sent him some kind of communication to let him know he was looking for food. Doesn't necessarily sound too good. And so what the warrior did was take some corn. Somehow, I don't know. Maybe they put them on the arrow, and he shot the arrow across the river and gave him corn, but did not let him come across the river. Okay? Yeah. And so this is an important time for us to hold this realization, because it's not necessarily that we're sunk to actual cannibalism, but remember, the spirit of cannibalism, okay, starts first to justify predatorizing your fellow man, which is really like eating your own arm, okay? It's an end game, okay? So now going back to the private, okay, and private membership associations and the household of God, okay? So here we have again this fundamental core capacity human beings have been using, documented for thousands and thousands of years. This ability for us to have a common goal and a common affection for each other, that we are moved to help each other. We are moved to look out for the well-being of each other. We are moved to help each other provide, food and nourishment and what we need, okay? Because we see the relevance and importance of that to break the cycle, to stop predatorizing, because it's an end game, okay? And so the Bible now reinforces, okay, the indigenous pattern, okay? Because what would happen from a tribal group that is been in a group that doesn't practice cannibalism, what would allow them to feel safe to go where in the past cannibalism had been practiced? You'd need to have some pretty good securities, wouldn't ya? Okay, and you're like, okay, so you want me to go into a big community where there's a bunch of people and I don't know them, and I know from history what was done here. Right. So give me a reason to cooperate with you. Okay, so what would they do? Yeah, that's a good idea. How do we help people feel safe again to be in close proximity? Well, you're going to have security, right? Because that spirit of cannibalism is my hypothesis is what pretty much drives everything what we call sin. As far as I can see, that for sure seems to be a big part of it, other than, also just the desire to lust for physical gratification of senses themselves, but that also will kill you. Okay, so anyways, going back to this household. So the public and the judicial system. Well, what if someone does lose control of themselves and does harm or injury? Well, the good people who are cooperating together have a means to be compensated for the injury. So when the public system operates properly, it can be productive. Okay? But it definitely, a long time ago, stopped working properly. And as far as I can tell, the reason is because of the retreating of the private domain, which is also considered the sacredness of the family. When we speak about the family being the core unit, okay, it is not just your immediate biological family. This is super important to understand. And the occurrence of the reference to the household being an integral thing during a serious transitional moment, the paradigm change. Noah went into the ark with his household. Okay? The Israelites, when it was time to exit, and they partook of the first Passover lamb, they were told to all gather in their households with their closest affiliates, closest family members whom they trusted and felt secure enough with to share their food with, okay, and feel safe with, okay? That could actually be a very large group, okay? Much bigger than what the public seems to want us to assume, okay? Because the size of the public is very similar to how we perceive our territory, our private territory, okay? Now, it also went to Rahab. Rahab, when the walls of Jericho were going to fall, and she helped the two spies, and she hid them. And they said that they would help her, and they gave her very strict instructions to go in to her private space where she dwells. That's like where our essence is. And all the people that she perceived as her family could go in there. So that place could have been packed. I mean, there was upstairs, there was a roof. We don't know how many people she actually was able to get in there. And it probably was an amazing quantity if we were to know the true story. But what is very interesting too is they gave her a very important instruction. They said, do not tell anyone about this private business that we have exchanged between us and you. Okay? That is so significant. This is about we're navigating an extremely precarious time. And the Bible says, be wise, cautious as serpent, innocent as doves. There's lots of admonition here. Be discerning, okay? Like the indigenous people. You know, what the last thing you would want is, say that guy had been a cannibal, and that guy let his guard down and let him in and brought him into the camp, and during the night the guy goes and kills someone and drags her body off to feed his gang of cannibal friends. Okay? Because once the base, deep psychological fear of death and the need to survive is triggered, human beings do become very dangerous. Okay? So this could be why we're seeing a lot of betrayal, a lot of saboteuring, a lot of backstabbing, a lot of that. So going back to the household of God, who can we trust? You see? What principles can we hold in common? What values can we hold in common? It goes all the way back, of course, to the Bible. And when Jesus was at a home and he was teaching, his mother and some of his siblings came to the house, and they said, they were calling for Jesus. They wanted him to go out. And so they said, oh, your mother and your siblings are here. And he went, and he said, yeah. And he said to them, who is my mother and my brothers? Kind of ask him a question. And they're kind of like, and then he gestures. And he said, everyone who does the will of my Father in heaven, this is my mother, my brother, and my sister. Okay? There's the most profoundly powerful scripture to solidly base our concept of what the private domain is. Okay, when you or me or anyone perceives that the very survival of the human race is now teetering in the balance. Okay? I personally am embracing the roots of my heritage as an indigenous person. So through my mother, okay, my mother is First Nations from Quebec, half. Both my grandparents were half French and First Nations from Quebec, okay? I'm embracing that wisdom of how tribal people formed, and I have had this reaffirmed to me, but to my face, by elders still living right now, telling me, take care of your family, find your roots, find who you can work with and trust and share with, okay? That's what they're telling, okay? Now, it's not just First Nations people. It's also the Bible itself gives the exact same admonishment. So we can take incredible comfort in the origins of the private. Now, people that live in the public, okay, it's like, trying to get someone who lives in the public to just comprehend living in the private is like taking someone born in the city, literally never been out in the wilderness, and taking them out there and just saying, go live. It is going to freak them out. They aren't going to know what to do, okay? It's as foreign as that. I get it. People that are used to living with strangers and only around other people that are always have a manipulative extractive way, like you can never trust. People are false and pretending to be your friend only because of what they think they might get by associating with you, okay? That kind of spirit, okay, is not going to be easy for a large percentage of people to, because it's true. We do have the capacity to be like that, but it's not the only way. And so in the private domain is also what traditionally was the concept of the church. But what's happened is the church has been commodified, okay, into a business, okay, used to indoctrinate us to not realize the other instructions and information in that book to help us right now, okay? Because in actuality, the church is simply about the extended family, the exact same way all tribal people on earth live, okay? And so, that is the best foundation I can see as a very clear indication. Jesus said, be content with sustenance and covering, okay? So whatever is connected to the fundamentals to nurture the full potential of the human being, not just meager, but full potential, sustenance and covering, protection, security, well-being. No, I'm busy. Okay. She's getting my coffee pot. Anyways. There we go. Hey, see, someone's hungry, right? You see how that when we want something, you see how that energy is? It's important. It's not always wrong or bad. Okay? Okay, so going back to, I'm just trying to make sure I cover everything on the concept. So the first thing, yes, going back to private membership associations really are the essence of this very, very instinctual alternative social structure humans will make together to take care of each other, to provide, if someone is sick, someone is hungry, someone is thirsty, someone is naked. You see all those admonitions that Christians are encouraged, okay? Well, that's also, well, how do we do that? And Jesus said, he condemned the Pharisees. They say, oh, go and be well fed and clothed and do nothing to help. That's not it. Okay? So private membership associations are an absolute authentic mechanism that we can engage in of service on many layers: education of our children, alternative health, alternative medicine, herbal components and tinctures, food of all kinds that we can trust, that's not poisoned and adulterated, okay? Very solid, based on the sanctity and preciousness of our body, okay? Like, this is solid, what I'm trying to say, okay? But I get that a large percentage of human beings have forgotten, okay? But that doesn't mean it's erased from history, okay? It doesn't mean you can erase it from our very instincts, okay? Our instincts even compel us in this direction. And so with PMAs, the next most significant thing I want to stress, okay, I am definitely engaged in this. I have formed my own private membership association. I'm going to share a, 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 a page where you can send me your email so I can put you on the list, okay? And if you would like to find out more information and become a member with our association, absolutely, I'll share that with you. And I'm also an advisor, okay, to help anyone in Canada that has a project that's ready to go to this next step, okay? I will help you, because it is true. We still have a very complex system that's become very fixated on details of control, okay? And so just to help everyone realize this is not a threat, and the most significant thing, PMAs are not a weapon to beat the globalists over the head with, or the communists, or whatever we think is our enemy. It's not about that. Though there's a huge percentage of people that are absolutely terrified right now, okay? But this provision that mirrors through pattern the actual original structure that human beings have used to survive very challenging times, the extended family as reinforced by Jesus Christ himself, okay, is something we can bring to the table in a very, very quick way, a very decentralized way, in a non-threatening way, to help stabilize our economy and meet our basic fundamental needs, while this drunken giant like Goliath is kind of going like this and like this. and is almost fall down now unconscious, you could say. It's like, right? We're watching that, okay? And so I just want to stress is I will gladly do my very best to help as many as possible to comprehend these principles that we have that are enshrined as our rights and freedoms. Rights exist in the public, freedoms exist in the private. And here's another, to close, example to comprehend the public. You come into a city, basically nothing's allowed. You're not allowed to do anything. You're not allowed to build a house. You're not allowed to do anything. And then what? Because they got all these different people all coming in and everybody wants to do, how do you create order? It's like, well, just make everything illegal, and then people apply through request permission. Permission to build a house, permission to have a business, permission to have a license, permission to have a car and do a delivery service. Permission. Okay? But what's happened is in the minds of everyone captured, they think that's the only way to do it. And it isn't. You see? So in the public, if you want to operate in the public, and it can have benefits when operating properly, okay, doing what it was intended to do, to serve the body of mankind and not be served by the body of mankind, which is cannibalism. Okay, so, and then in the private, basically everything is allowed except to cause harm, okay? And to really drive this home, in my town where I live, very near in my neighborhood, an absolute low sink drug den, okay? Right near me. And in fact, just in the last month, a young man was dragged to death by drug dealers in this town. Okay? Yep. On a street down from me. A back road. It's very real. Okay? Now, a few months ago, earlier in the winter, a woman fled for her life from that drug den and came to my house in the night. And she was terrified. She was trembling. She wasn't dressed well. She was a skeleton. Okay? I called the police because I thought, this would be an opportunity for them to investigate. They didn't even bother to come. They didn't even bother to come. That was very concerning to me. So then I actually reached out to an RCMP that I felt I could speak to in the private, off duty. And the individual shared with me that it's gone to the point where the court will not issue search warrants at all, practically, to go into where the private domain of that drug den. That's how strong the private domain is. Because they have illegal substances that are illegal in the public. They're consuming. But they're consuming it for themselves. And so what they do is they just try to catch them when they come out from their private domain where they have no jurisdiction, and catch them in the public. So now, just let that sink in. Heroin addicts who are murderous with guns and everything else, they're absolutely lost now in their addictions, okay? Have protection still by the private domain. How much more so will our private domain be protected? By God, by the principles that are motivating us to help each other, put food on our table, teach each other how to feed ourselves. There's a myriad of things we can do immediately to stabilize this very, very precarious situation. And I will share a lot more details, okay? Because there are what's called foundation documents, okay? Because there's an education that needs to happen, because people that live in the public often don't have a clue at all how to operate in the private. It's foreign to them, like the wilderness. It's so much like the wilderness right now. And there's an example of a Fibonacci pattern for us, you see? Because it seems like that. Because it's so different and unfamiliar. But human beings, I tell you why we survive. We're the most resilient and adaptive species on Earth. And Jesus illustrated this, and I believe it's a reference for the two hemispheres of the brain. And one, the left, is the dominant of the predator way of thinking, which is not always wrong. And then the other, which is the collective group, extended. We are part of a larger living whole, which would represent being part of a large herd, like a giant, massive herd of bison or sheep, or that kind of idea. Okay, so these literally are this very structure of our own brain. Okay, we have the ability to flip within our own biology to be this different perspectives. And Jesus said, when he was speaking to his followers, he was, standing outside, "You'll say to this mountain, be cast over, move over here, and it will be done for you. And when you have the ability to do that, nothing will be impossible for you." So think about it. Is he, he's talking to this group of men, and he gestures to his left, and say he's facing north. And you'll say to this mountain, be moved over onto the right. It's like, whoa. Now, the flesh part of man goes, oh man, we're going to have so much power. We're going to be able to move mountains like, they do with, coal extraction. It's like all physical, lusting for physical dominating power. Is that what Jesus meant? Or did he mean we will get to the point in time where we will be able to change our perspective so completely, we will turn around, and instead of facing south, face north, and instead of the mountain being on the left, it will be on the right. And what will happen is it will be us who changed and turned, and we're able to see things in a completely new way. And I think that's a reference to this higher potential function of our brain. Okay, and that is part of our evolution. Okay, that is knowing our brain is part of our evolution. And so these qualities and these attributes, okay, what we're talking about are in the Bible and in our actual evolutionary development. Okay? And that's why I feel so confident about this. And I look forward. We definitely have a gift that is being given to us if we allow ourselves to have the courage and to see the potential fertility of the heart of humanity. And what I saw millions and millions, and I still see them, of good people. Brings tears to my eyes. Yeah. As death is behind us and life is in front of us together.